coastal guns. There was Kaminoshima High Artillery, which had 8 pieces of 280 mm caliber howitzer to protect shipyards in Nagasaki Bay. A 280 mm caliber shell for this coast gun dwarfs a basketball. There was also Kaminoshima Low Artillery, which had 2 pieces of 90 mm caliber rapid-firing guns. There was Kageno Artillery also, which had 2 pieces of the same 90 mm caliber rapid-firing guns. It was called Nagasaki Fortress. Anti-Aircraft Gun Regiment, Unit 134. Japan deployed Anti-Aircraft Gun Regiment, Unit 134 in Nagasaki to protect factories such as Kawanami Shipyard, Mitsubishi Shipyard, Mitsubishi Weapons, Mitsubishi Steels, Nagasaki Port, city area, from air raids and shut down 26 enemy planes since its foundation of June 16, 1944. Unit 134 also had a plan to counter-attack enemy landing craft, warships, and tanks in case of American landing on Nagasaki. However, Unit 134 suffered so much damage by the atomic bomb that they greeted the end of war while caring for the wounded by the atomic bomb. Anti-aircraft guns. Mount Kompira had 6 pieces of 75 mm caliber anti-aircraft guns. Nakanoshima had 2 pieces of 75 mm caliber anti-aircraft guns. Kosakaki had 4 pieces of 75 mm caliber anti-aircraft guns. Hoshitori had 2 pieces of 105 mm caliber anti-aircraft guns. Kaminoshima had 5 pieces of 105 mm caliber anti-aircraft guns. Koyagi-Abo had 6 pieces of 88 mm caliber anti-aircraft guns. Mount Inasa had 4 pieces of 75 mm caliber anti-aircraft guns. This is Japanese Wikipedia to show anti-aircraft gun units in Nagasaki. You may realize that Mount Inasa anti-aircraft gun unit is missing in this list. Japan removed anti-aircraft guns on Mount Inasa to use somewhere else. However, Japan made fake guns out of wood and painted black to look exactly the real ones. American reconnaissance plane was deceived by the fake guns, but Nagasaki invited a bigger problem, that is, the atomic bomb. Because 1. Nagasaki is mountainous, and anti-aircraft gun units were effectively placed on top of such mountains. Because 2. Anti-aircraft gun units were well trained and had successfully shot down as many as 26 American bombers which had sortied over Nagasaki before the atomic bombing. And therefore Americans placed Nagasaki in the atomic bombing list in order to avoid further casualties on the American side. Anti-aircraft machine guns. Tategami had 2 25 mm caliber triple anti-aircraft machine guns. Kageno also had 2 25mm caliber triple anti-aircraft machine guns. Ieno had two 25mm caliber dual anti-aircraft machine guns. Yamasato had two 25mm caliber dual anti-aircraft machine guns. Nishimachi also had two 25mm caliber dual anti-aircraft machine guns. Searchlight unit. Searchlights were used to illuminate enemy planes, invading vessels, and tanks, to assist artillery to aim their guns at the enemy. Iwo-jima had a searchlight unit. Kurinoura had a searchlight unit. Fukahori had a searchlight unit. Kaminoshima had a searchlight unit. Koyagijima had a searchlight unit. Doi-no-Kubi had a searchlight unit. Mitsubishi Shipyard had a searchlight unit. Minoo had a searchlight unit. Tohakkei had a searchlight unit. Mount Kazagashirayama had a searchlight unit. Mount Kompira had a searchlight unit. Aburagimachi had a searchlight unit. Mount Inasa had a searchlight unit. Nakanoshima had a searchlight unit. There was Nagasaki Fortress headquarters 2 kilometers to the south of the first atomic bomb target, 1 Tokyo Bridge. Nagasaki was an impregnable fortress. Before the Battle of Okinawa, parents of school children chose Nagasaki as a place to seek refuge, as they thought Nagasaki was defended by numerous guns and the safest place in Japan. Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, Fukuoka evacuated their school children to safer remote countrysides, but Nagasaki didn't, as they thought Nagasaki was much safer than remote countrysides, which had no guns to protect themselves. Nagasaki was proud of being the Gibraltar of Japan. Suicide motorboat cave base. You might have noticed that while Nagasaki was heavily protected on the west, but not so much on the east. But Nagasaki had an ace up their sleeves. They dug a cave base in Maki Island to house suicide motorboat Shinyos. Caves were dug facing north so that they would not be destroyed by American naval gunfire. Shinyo had a 250-kilogram explosive at its bow and detonates on contact to sink the enemy vessels. Let's check against the Japanese Wikipedia. Japanese Wikipedia Makishima Machi says, Suicide Corps was deployed in April 1945 on Makishima. Shinyo Base was built in July. There were 50 drivers, which means 50 Shinyos readied. Tank trap. Japanese Wikipedia discloses that a 13-year-old child was digging a tank trap. Ozaki is a Western-style painter who experienced the atomic bombing in Nagasaki. He was 13 years old and was digging a trench to trap enemy tanks coming from Tachibana Bay. As Ozaki explained, children were digging trenches along the eastern hill Koshiki-Iwa to trap the enemy tanks and destroy them.